Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. It's just gone 5 p.m. here in the UK and it's horrible outside. It's a little bit cold and it's drizzling. It's that drizzle that wets you through. So I've decided to come on here and lose a few more subscribers. Every time I do anything on Kohberger, I lose subscribers, which is fine. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. If you believe Kohberger's innocent, that's fine by me. As long as you're not abusive, as long as you're respectful, all opinions are welcome. But I've been reading through the comments to the video that I put on the channel this morning. It's only a short video, like 12 minutes. And I did have to ban one person. I did have to block one person because they overstepped. But there's a lot of people in the comments of my recent Idaho videos who believe Kohberger's innocent, and that's fine. All right. However, don't come on accusing me of tainting the jury pool. That's just ridiculous. Telling me that I'm biased and I'm tainting the jury pool. Well, what are you guys doing? If you're coming online, either on your own channel or on someone else's channel, and you are stating that you believe Kohberger's innocent and stating the reasons why, you're also tainting the jury pool. That's why they have jury selection. That's the purpose of jury selection, to get an impartial jury. Okay. All right. So no nonsense about tainting the jury pool. We're all entitled to our opinion. I happen to believe that the state of Idaho have got the right man. Basically because I haven't seen any evidence to the contrary. I haven't seen all of this exculpatory evidence that you guys think there is. There isn't. And no, I don't just listen to the mainstream media. I actually watch very little mainstream media. What I do is read court filings, and I read court filings from both sides because that's what we've got to date. And I listen to the hearings. That's what we've got to date. At this moment in time, I happen to believe that they've got the right man. If evidence comes up to the contrary, that could truly exculpate Kohberger, then I reserve the right to change my opinion, whether that's in the pre-trial phase that we're in now, or whether that's at trial, just like I did with Delphi. When Richard Allen was arrested, I thought, not the strongest PCA in the world, but let's go with it. They've got evidence, maybe, that we haven't seen yet. But as more and more came out, it became absolutely blatantly clear, blatant it was, that they did not have evidence against Richard Allen. And in fact, the trial made it worse because the state's own evidence negated the state's own theory. And I don't know whether it's because I've been quite outspoken about Richard Allen that people just assume that I'm also going to think Kohberger's innocent, but they're completely different cases. The amount of evidence that they've got against Kohberger, and remember, we haven't seen the whole of it. Of course we haven't. We've only seen what's been produced in court filings from either side. Again, I reserve the right to change my opinion at any time. As you should all. Reserve that right to change your opinion at any time. All right, but that said, Purple AJ has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Purple AJ. You are so kind. We've got Anders, April, Music City Mom, Ashley, and I think it's Connie, but it's just to scroll up a little. Yeah, Connie, mama of 2 boys. So welcome. If you've been a member before, you'll know where the members area is. If you've not been a member before, go and check out the members area. We've got all sorts of bits and pieces in there. All sorts. All right. So what we're going to be doing in this live stream is I'm going to read through the essay that appeared in one court filing. And honestly, I wasn't going to cover this. I wasn't. I've read it. I read it when I read through the last round of court filings, and I wasn't going to cover it. But people are talking about it. There's a bunch of like News Nation have gone with it. Fox have gone with it. And all right, okay, I'll read the essay. The reason why I wasn't going to cover it is because, to me, this isn't evidence of anything. I mean, look, you can look at it in such a way. This is the essay. You can look at it in such a way as to say, oh, well, he knew how to protect a crime scene. Like he's been taught in his criminal justice. I think this was during his master's, because this is from 2020. He knew how to... Where are we at here? Here we go. 5/5/2020. This was at. So this would have been during his master's. He started his PhD in August 2022 when he moved to Washington. So this is for the course or module, whatever they call it there. This will be at DeSales, CJ 361. If you've ever taken that course, I'd be interested in knowing your opinions on it. But the reason why I don't consider this evidence is because I taught psychology for over 20 years, and some of the assignments that we gave students, you could, because I was in forensic psychology, you could argue is teaching students how to get away with crimes. Could easily argue that. And, you know, psychology, criminal justice, forensics, they're all really popular. So there will be thousands and thousands of students, like throughout the world, doing similar courses, whether it's criminal justice, whether it's psychology, whether it's something related. And they teach you about crime scenes. They teach you about the behavior of people under interrogation. They teach you about things that are relevant, right, to potentially getting away with murder. And what we don't see, is people who take these courses turn into a life of crime. We're not in that business. All right. We're not in that business of teaching people how to become criminals. So for me, I don't see this as evidence of anything. Now, obviously, the state have included this in a filing for a reason. And maybe they're going to make the point to the jury that he was a criminal justice student. And the reason why there was very little evidence at the crime scene is because he knew how to basically cover his tracks. And I get that. I understand that. All right. And then we're going to read this. And it's not really an essay. It's just a series of bullet points. So it's not an essay. Like, so the media have been talking about this essay. It's not an essay. It's a bunch of bullet points, but we are going to read them. And in Kohberger's own words. And then we're going to go on to the defense filing from their expert witness, Cy Ray. Yeah, stargazing on a cloudy night. That was his alibi. Yeah, that's his alibi. Stargazing on a cloudy night. Going for a drive at night because he likes stargazing. Okay. So we're going to read Cy Ray's affidavit. Cy Ray is one of the defense witnesses, and this is a new filing. This has literally just come out. So we're going to read this filing here. There we go. Affidavit. And it's regarding the ATT records. So I'm going to read that. So for the sake of people who say that I never read the defense filings and I never take the defense's side, well, I read the filings and then I give my opinion on them. So There's that. So we're going to look at that affidavit. All right, but first we're going to read this essay here. So, crime scene scenario final. Bryan C. Kohberger. Professor Dave Seep, I'm not sure. CJ 361552020. Arriving at the crime scene. The first thing to be done. So this, what they will have been given is a hypothetical scenario of, a scene, and apparently it's a woman who has been stabbed to death. Oh, ironic. So this essay is explaining what you would do if you were the person in charge of that crime scene. So the officer in charge of the crime scene, or the forensics person who's turning up at the crime scene. So, okay, arriving at the crime scene. First thing to be done is block off the crime scene in order to avoid crime scene contamination. Cool. Keep people out of the scene, minimize evidence contamination. Though many may be curious to see what occurred. Were you curious, Bryan, when you went back? When you went back to the area at 9 a.m. Were you curious, Bryan? Were you? When you went back to the scene at 9 a.m. on November 13th, 2022, were you curious? Were you curious to see whether the crime scene tape was already up? Were you disappointed when you had to drive away? Doesn't seem that you were that disappointed, because at 10:31 you took a thumbs up picky of yourself in your shower. Okay, all right. The theory of transfer states that we bring something with us to the crime scene and take something away, thus skewing the crime scene from the original state by contamination. This is because the original state of the crime scene was left by the criminal suspect. A lack of contamination allows the scene to be a snapshot in time. The curious must be noted and immediately evicted from the scene. People to be kept out of the scene include unauthorized civilians and any more than the absolute minimum number of law enforcement agents and forensic crime processors. All good so far. Waiting for backup to arrive, I should stand guard at the scene, preventing these unauthorized people and even holding back eager officers from entering the crime scene. Can you imagine Kohberger? Stop! None must enter. I must call my immediate supervisor and inform them of the deceased white female, who is approximately 35 years of age. I must obtain an initial search warrant to search the scene. Failing to do so will mean that evidence is inadmissible. Well, it depends. If you've got permission to search the scene by, I don't know, the landowner, then you have to wait for a warrant. However, let's just assume that it was the woman's property. She's murdered. So now you're going to have to wait for your warrant. Okay, cool. This is another reason why holding personnel from entering is key. The coroner must be called in order to pronounce the woman dead, and EMS should be called if they are not already called by the patrol officer 15 minutes earlier, as they would have provided emergency care if the woman showed any signs of life. This would have been important for many reasons. Her livelihood is one reason. Okay. But from the stance of a patrol officer or criminal investigator, she may have given a dying declaration of her attacker when informed of her impending death. Dear God. Okay. Forensic services are next on the list to call, as they are best equipped to handle the evidence, process it, and ensure that there's not any contamination. Their van also contains the best equipment for forensic investigation. A cursory search of the immediate area must be done, or should be done, and any observations should be recorded in my field notes as to ensure the integrity of the preliminary case report. Can you imagine Bryan sitting with his attorneys going through all the forensic reports and the scenes of crime reports that were done for the murder that he committed? Can you imagine? He's going to be loving it. He's going to be loving it. But you know what? A part of me thinks that he committed a murder to see if he could get away with it, and for the thrill of it. just for the hell of it. I don't know. See, bizarre reason, but part of me thinks that that's a possible. Okay, occurs through social media area, should be done. Any observations should be noted in my field notes. All right. Officers who are not needed at the residence should ensure that the general area is searched for anything that stands out as well. This includes the area of the trailer park, which contains 62 trailers. So that will have been in the scenario, I would imagine. So woman's found deceased at a trailer park, stabbed to death. Ironic. If there is anyone in the trailer, they should be moved out and questioned. Does she have kids? I should gather the following information in my notes as the investigation commences, which will later be included in my preliminary case report, where the details of the case culminate. The offence, time of day, date and approximate time of offence if known, identification of the victim, location of the offence, the method of operation if known, and the identification of the officer. Since the offender is not there, I will be unable to record this information initially, and the specifics of the crime won't be known until confirmed by the crime lab. Getting the approximate time is important and can be indicated by rigor mortis, which sets in at about 12 hours. No, it's before that. Rigor mortis depends on the temperature, depends on, well, largely the temperature. But no, rigor starts to set in way earlier than that. I think it's maybe at its height at about 12 hours. It's not just starting at 12 hours though. Hold on. When does rigor mortis start? If you want to believe AI, I hate it. I hate that Google gives this AI overview. I hate it. Rigor mortis, the stiffening of the muscles after death, typically begins within 2 hours and is complete around 6 to 12 hours, lasting for another 12 to 24 hours. That sounds about right, actually. So it starts with the small muscles, like the muscles in the face, muscles in the fingers, like all the small muscles first. So he's a bit wrong on that. I'd like to know what mark he got for this. I'd like to know what mark he got. And putrefaction, about 10 to 20 days. Again, putrefaction is part of the decomp process. Oh, that's gonna that 10 to 20 days. Again, depends on loads of factors. All this information will aid me as I attempt to reconstruct the scene of the crime based on the evidence location in relation to its former known position. Equipment I will have on hand for the investigation. To be prepared for the crime scene investigation, I must ensure I have a crime toolkit. Oh, a crime toolkit. I wonder whether that's what Bryan had, the crime toolkit. I bet you any money you did. I bet you any money he had a little crime toolkit. Oh, dear. You know, kill kits like Israel Keys. Containing the following: 35mm camera or digital camera capable of videotaping with an adequate supply of film and power. Okay. Not just use your phone. They don't use the phone these days. I know they have like good cameras for, you know, the important stuff. Portable lighting system to ensure quality photographs that I do not miss or step over any evidence. Assorted steel tape measures that can reach about 25 feet. A ruler or other measure marking devices. Latent fingerprinting equipment. Gloves to protect the scene from contamination. Well, you know all about gloves, don't you, Bryan? You could do a whole essay on gloves. This will enable that I avoid leaving my latent fingerprints. Forceps and small tweezers and a pair of scissors. A small saw to take evidence, for example, drywall. Filter paper or small swabs for liquid evidence or trace evidence. Various evidence containers for liquid and solid evidence. Paper envelopes for physical evidence. Evidence tape to seal off the evidence containers. casting material to take molds of possible footprints around the perimeter with a rubber container for the mixture. What is this guy? Is he like this is a forensic crime kit, isn't it? Yeah, red solo cups, yeah. Ah. Don't forget the red solo cups. Don't forget the red solo cups. Oh dear. You know, I don't reckon the average senior crime officer carries all this stuff with him. However, you know, he's putting everything in. He's putting everything in to get his marks. A magnifying device should be kept. Crime scene tape for the scene, protective clothing, boot covers, eyewear, fibre-free overalls, face masks, hairnets, gowns, and anything that will prevent me from contaminating the scenes with things I bring in with me. Well, there you go. There you go. That's all we needed to know. A blue light with yellow glasses, which makes small trace evidence more visible, can be used to ensure that a photo is taken of all evidence. There could be a small amount of blood somewhere that wouldn't have been sampled, documented, and photographed otherwise. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Now, the average officer, actually, they do carry little blue lights. A lot of them do anyway, like just average officers for that reason. Entering the home for crime scene documentation and initial photography or videography. I may enter upon judicial approval of the search warrant and should do so with the minimum number of personnel. Having too many personnel evident in the photography may put the integrity of the evidence into question and taint the scene. A contamination list should be made. He loves his contamination, doesn't he? Like, he'd make a great forensics person. Because of his OCD, he'd be very, very meticulous. You know, because his OCD focuses around cleanliness. He'd have made a great forensics person. It's a shame, really, he went down the wrong path, but anyhow, a contamination list should be made documenting every person who enters and exits and crime scene why. This includes first responding officers, firefighters, EMTs, family members, criminal investigators, and all crime scene personnel. Still, there should not be that many people in the crime scene. Otherwise, contamination will be increased. Okay, we know that. I must ensure that myself and my fellow crime scene personnel are wearing gloves. Again, you know all about that. And other protective equipment, you know all about that too, as to avoid contaminating the scene with latent fingerprints. Yeah, he's focused on his latent fingerprints. Forgot your DNA though, didn't you, Bryan? Oh dear. Big mistake. Big mistake. Big mistake. A fibre-free boot cover would be ideal to avoid leaving physical footprints or residue from the boot. There you go. Why were there no footprints inside? Why were there no footprints outside? Well, there was one latent footprint, but why were there none? Well, fibre-free boot covers. There you go. There's your answer. Anything that is fibre-free and covers the mouth, hair, and overall body will be helpful in avoiding crime scene contamination, since hair, saliva, skin cells, and other bodily fluids or cells may be added to the scene, thus contaminating it. Fibres can be left via the theory of exchange and would contaminate the crime scene from its initial state as the offender left it. Even if we can't assume that there was an offender despite seeming obvious, preventing contamination is an important way to ensure the integrity of the investigation and evidence. We should always treat the crime scene as if there was indeed a criminal homicide, as to not miss out on important details. That is how this crime scene is being handled. Good stuff. First thing for me to do is to take a coordinated series of crime scene photographs with a digital photography device or a 35mm camera from a natural point of view. These photos must be taken prior to the movement of any object in the crime scene to ensure that the photo captures the scene as the offender left it. The photograph should be taken from a general view of the exterior of the home, as well as general views of the interior, recording the time and detail of the photographs in my notes. Setting up portable lighting ensures that the elements of the crime are adequately illuminated for photography documentation. The photos should be in colour as to provide the best, most accurate image, thus avoiding photographic distortion. The following details regarding photography should be recorded in the field notes and on the back of the photos if possible. Well, what you doing? Are you taking Polaroid pictures or what? Are you going to write on the back? Taking Polaroids. Recording these details will ensure that the defence attorney does not attempt to devalue the quality of your evidence, which may make it inadmissible. I bet you're all over it, aren't you, Brian? I bet you're all over it. I bet you're loving it. Your little discovery meetings with your team. I bet you're loving it. Data to identify the subject of the photograph, but without too much unnecessary information. Location of the photograph, including the state, city, street, and address. Identifying data of the photographer, including the name, police agency, badge number, and identification number. The case number, if established at the time of dispatch. The precise time of the photograph, the date, the weather at the time. Okay. The photograph equipment used, including shutter speeds, film type, and developing and printing techniques. Next, photos of specific rooms should be taken with special attention to the living room in which the deceased person was found. So, all right, so presumably she was found in the living room of her trailer, I assume, in this scenario. As the coordination of photos is focused inwards, specific components of the crime, like physical evidence, should be accounted for and detailed. These should also be logged in my field notes. This physical evidence should be photographed next to a measurement marker, which can be a ruler or any other easily comparable object of well-known size. The body and physical evidence to take a picture prior to collection from the forensic services and crime scene investigators includes the deceased woman in the living room, who should be photographed under adequate lighting from a long view. Specific shots should be focused on the evidence of harm on her body and clothing. The bruises on her face, the marks on her neck, the bloody shirt, and any other signs of post-mortem lividity should be photographed and taped without moving the victim. A measurement marker should be placed next to her. This will show if an offender moved the woman as to manipulate the crime scene. Does she have defence wounds? Are there hesitation marks on her related to the knife? Or are there multiple stab wounds? These must be photographed and taped. Is the mark on her neck related to the hanger near her? So there's a hanger near her. The photographs make it sure that these items were indeed present at the crime scene. So what, like a clothes hanger, I assume? Guessing. Not like an airplane hanger. I think that's a bit big. Most of these questions are speculated until absolutely confirmed by the forensic medical examiner, who can use scientific equations to determine the approximate time of death. This is the maxim that stands even when the scene seems to point to the obvious. The time of death is never entirely accurate, but the photographs can aid in this process as they capture phenomena such as rigor mortis or putrefaction when the woman was found. I'm not really sure how a photograph can capture rigor mortis, honestly. But then again, why would a devout vegan kill 4 people? Well, True Crime Snoopy, here's the thing. Bryan isn't vegan. He's not vegan in the sense that I'm vegan. Like true vegans are vegan because they don't eat their friends and don't use products that have been tested on their friends. So it's about saving animals, or at least if you can't save them, at least you're not playing into the system that murders them. Bryan has an eating disorder. So I think Bryan calls himself vegan, as some people do, sadly, because vegan, quote unquote vegan, is a socially acceptable way to restrict your food. Also, Bryan, I think, because of his OCD, I think probably believes that certain foods are unclean. So he's not vegan. He's not vegan in the true sense of the word. Or else, no, how could you kill 4 people? Then again, I'm vegan because I don't want to eat my friends, but don't really like people. Anyhow, couldn't eat a whole one. All right, the knife should be photographed under adequate light, and a marker should be placed next to the knife to give the best photographic representation of the evidence. The misshapen coat hanger. All right, okay, so we've got a misshapen coat hanger close to the scene, should be photographed under adequate light, and the measurement marker should be placed next to the evidence. The appended furniture and children's furniture should be photographed firstly from a long view, and then focus specifically on each piece of furniture under adequate lighting with a measurement marker. All of this should be well documented in the field notes and on the photograph. Is there any sign of forced entry in the home? This should be evident by broken glass from windows or pry marks on the doors or windows surrounding the house. This should be photographed, videotaped and documented. Yeah, because, you know, not everybody leaves the door open. I'm guessing that Bryan, when he entered through the glass sliding door, it was unlocked. So there was no pry marks or anything like that. So I was able to just get in. If there's not forced entry, it may be suggested that the woman knew her killer. Yeah, so I guess Bryan will be thinking, yeah, well, when I murder these 4 people, I don't think he intended to murder 4. I think he actually only intended to murder 1, but that's just my opinion. I think it all went wrong for him a little bit. But he'd have been thinking, oh, well, they're going to blame everybody else. They're not going to be looking for little old me living in another state 10 minutes down the road. Wait till we get onto surveillance, though. A video camera will be used to go over all the evidence which was photographed. Documentation of the video evidence should be also filled out in the recorded field notes. Crime scene sketch. Crime scene sketch occurs after the scene was initially searched, photographed, and videoed. The sketch is of great value in criminal court. This sketch should be first done in pencil to ensure that the scene... Do they really do that these days? Do they do crime scene sketches still these days? I don't know that they do. Anyway, it should be done in pencil to ensure the sketch accurately portrays evidence and measurements. I suppose they do like diagrams. Like diagrams, don't they? Wouldn't really call it a sketch, though. I don't know. Maybe there are some scenes of crime officers who are good artists who do really good sketches. The final version will be done with a non-perishable ink via pen. The physical evidence of the crime, which includes but not limited to the knife, misshapen coat hanger, furniture, as well as any other biological evidence like bodily material or fluids, should be drawn out in accurately measured proportions from each other and permanent objects in the crime scene sketch. The final sketch and the confirmation by the forensic processing unit and investigator will determine whether this was all the physical evidence at the scene. New evidence could be added to the crime scene sketch when new measurements are taken. The distance from the permanent fixtures should be accurately recorded and depicted. The crime scene sketch should be measured by the criminal investigator and accurately display the proportions of the physical evidence. Any inaccurate portrayal of the location of evidence can influence the juror perception of the guilt or innocence of the suspect. And they use this high-tech stuff now, don't they, that can do like proper like 3D modeling and stuff like that. But I guess maybe average crime scenes, a diagram of sketches is what they deal with. I would imagine it's more of a... Hold on, just dropped something off my table. I would imagine it's a diagram, not a sketch, but if they call it a sketch, I'm happy with that. All right. While you do not need to be an artist... All right, they're addressing my problem here. While you do not need to be an artist, the responsibility of sketching should be taken with accuracy and a goal for a clear portrayal in mind. Though I can assign another officer to sketch it, I have decided to take this task on. Oh, 25-foot steel measuring tape should be used to record these exact and accurately recorded measurements of the physical evidence and permanent objects. All right, too much detail shouldn't be included in the sketch to avoid confusion. All right, extraneous detail, including movable furniture, blah, blah, blah. Living room should be sketched out with the deceased woman being drawn in proportion to the knife, coat hanger, appended furniture, and children's furniture. Okay, I've decided to use the rectangular coordinated method. with 2 right angles being outlined in proportion to the physical evidence and permanent fixtures and centering around the living room. The projections should be used to document biological evidence like blood stains or other physical evidence that imprinted on the walls. Bullet holes would be something that should be ruled out, and if bullet holes are present, they should be documented on the 3D exploded sketch before the drywall is removed via saw. Interesting. Though it appears obvious that the knife was used in the crime, we do not know this for sure and should make sure to document everything and look for less apparent evidence. Good stuff. Even if there was an item introduced to the scene by the offender to throw off investigators, what, like a knife sheath, you know, like leave it there to throw them off? I don't think so. I don't think he left that there on purpose. I don't think he did. I think he'll kick himself for the rest of his life. You know, the life that he'll have before he faces the firing squad. He'll regret it for the rest of his life that he did that. It is not the job of the criminal investigator processing the crime scene to jump to conclusions. The crime lab will be able to decipher with scientific certainty what is and what isn't an original element of the crime. Okay. You know, always. Staging is common. For example, the offender may have taken items from the house to make it look like a burglary turned robbery, which went wrong. Okay, interesting. The official crime preliminary report should include the accurate sketch with the following details. Okay, all right. Lots, a bunch of details. Choosing to draw it to scale. All right, good stuff. Computer-aided design. All right, which uses laser lights. This is what I'm on about. The stuff that they use with lasers, he says, and takes up 25,000 measurements per second in 3D, may be utilized if available for the scale of the scene is more accurate. I would repeat, the CAD, if available, for it gives a blah, 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 blah. All right. The more comprehensive crime scene search using the strip search method. Okay. All right, the strip search method. Interesting that he uses a knife in this scenario. Well, I assume that he would have been given the scenario. I would assume that the professor gave the class a scenario and then they had to pretend that they were some kind of scenes of crime officer and then write down all the things they would do. So I don't think he probably maybe had a choice. I don't know. They might have had a whole bunch of scenarios that they could choose from, like different crimes. I don't know, or they may have all been given the same one. That's why I'd be interested to hear from anybody who actually has taken this course in the past. Okay, so the more comprehensive crime scene search using the strip search method. In order to collect evidence from the interior of the residence, I will assign roles to officers on the scene, briefing them to watch where they are stepping and not act impulsively or without great care. Hasty actions will lead to valuable evidence being transplanted and lost. Yeah, no red solo cups in this. A Kohberger's in charge. No red solo cups. No. We want all the proper gear. The strip search method is what I've decided on, as it allows for the interior of the crime scene to be searched from one end to the other with more than one officer or forensic processing unit. The exterior of the property should be searched from one end to the other as well, switching to a grid search if necessary. Walking from one end of the scene to the opposite end of the scene, I will then turn around and cover ground to the right or left without stepping on the same spot twice. The rooms of the trailer should be searched in this method with special attention to the living room where the victim lies. Assigning a CSI or officer and myself to this section, living room, would include that the scene is thoroughly checked. As I move from one end to the other, I will make sure that I shine my flashlight ahead of myself to ensure I do not damage or carry away small pieces of physical evidence. Smaller items of physical evidence include wood chips, hairs, paint flakes, glass fragments, or small fibers. If not careful, these may be lost before even accounting for or observing them. I don't think you're going to be able to avoid like stepping on every single hair. I don't think that's possible. But anyhow, if new pieces of physical evidence are uncovered, I will take note of it for documentation and photography, videography. Things such as footprints inside and outside should be prepared to be photographed and videotaped. I must photograph and videotape the new evidence as well as log it with the following information. So the information that we've already heard about. All information that is carefully recorded regarding the crime scene evidence aids the crime report. Okay, good stuff. The location of this evidence is very important, for it may give us the following information. Establish traces or identification of the suspect. Well, it certainly did that in this case. Certainly did that. Establishing the suspect's modus operandi or identifying similar MOs via information added to the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, from the completed crime report. Confirming alibis or exposing lies. Oh, yeah, we're exposing a few. We're exposing a few here. Like, I'm not guilty. Even though he's never actually said the words, has he? He's never actually said the words. He didn't answer. When he was asked to state his plea, he didn't answer. And Ann Taylor had to stand up and basically say he's not going to speak. Yay. Mason, member for 6 months. Thank you for all you do. Love your channel. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mason. The identification of contraband, stolen property and other illegals, identifying victims if they're not identified. Can't assume that the woman lives at this residence before confirming it. A dead body may not be initially tied to the residence. Okay. Providing investigation leads, like a knife sheath with DNA on it. That provides an investigation lead, doesn't it? For example, checking into the husband or boyfriend and the location of the children based on the crime scene evidence is warranted. Is that who you thought would be in the firing line here? Boyfriends, friends, roommates? Well, according to some of Brian's best friends, his Kohberger crew, that's exactly who did it. Providing a statutory element of the offence. The collection of items of evidence, like crime scene photography, larger items of physical evidence, first taken. This includes the dishevelled furniture and children's furniture, cell phone and computer if they're, the knife and the coat hanger. The body will be taken later by a CSI with the coroner for custody to wait for analysis by a forensic medical examiner trained to perform the autopsy. The knife should be examined for latent fingerprints. What about DNA, Brian? You're obsessed with fingerprints. What about DNA? You've forgotten all that. Just because you didn't leave any fingerprints on the knife sheath didn't mean to say that you didn't leave your DNA. Huh. Same with the coat hanger, doorknobs around the house, appended furniture, cell phone, virtually any physical evidence big enough to grab. Crimes of passion are rooted in emotionality and impulsivity. If this is the case, we can lightly count on there being latent fingerprints on the doorknob and all over the knife and the victim. Oh, well, you didn't leave any of that, did you? No. Why? Because you covered your hands. Smaller items of biological or trace evidence, such as hair and fibres from clothing, must be collected using metal forceps or tweezers as to avoid damaging this delicate evidence, which may hold significant value in the criminal investigation. Fingerprints and footprints are class evidence to be taken with molds and fingerprinting kit. Fingerprints should be entered into AFIS, so the fingerprint database system thing. I should use a swab where applicable to collect fluids or skin cells which contain DNA. Yeah, like on the button of the knife sheath. The shirt likely contains not only the blood of the woman, but the blood of the possible offender. Why? Like, all right, if there was an actual fight and it came to blows, or the offender managed to cut himself somehow, then, or herself, it could be a woman, I guess. Yeah, okay, if there was a fight, but not in the case when 4 people are in their beds. No, not then. DNA from biological evidence should be swabbed, placed in a vial, documented in notes and on the container for the evidence chain of custody, which included to be sent to the crime lab. The shirt will later be bagged and taken separately as physical evidence. I should make sure to swab under her fingernails to see if the DNA of the offender is there. She likely dug into their skin. Not if she was asleep. Not if there was no skin available for her to dig into. Is there evidence of SA or semen present? This evidence should be marked, swabbed, and collected in a glass vial or cellophane bag. Is there evidence of personation? Did the offender take something? Or did the offender display an excessive need for control over the victim as demonstrated by a possible essay and murder? These are all observations to be recorded, though not conclusively. During the search phase, the evidence should be marked with the following information in the field notes and later in the evidence seal or packaging. I'm choosing to bag all evidence and not directly mark it, for it will be sent to the forensic lab. Size of the object, physical nature of the object, is it solid or liquid? Okay. The value of the object and the number of like objects, the case number, okay, a bunch of other stuff. This process should be done so many times as needed. It may occur up to 1,000 or more times. It must be counted accurately. And the quality should be accurately recorded, or quantity, sorry, should be accurately recorded on the container. Packaging the evidence for the forensic lab. Each item I collect, including but not limited to the knife, coat hanger, and bloody clothing on the woman, must be packaged in the proper way for the forensic lab. Separate containers, like separate red Solo cups, must use new, clean packaging. Get your Solo cups out of, a packet rather than ones that have been used recently. All right. Obviously, blood or other biological evidence renders a container spent. Avoiding metal containers, which can be reused, is ideal to confirm the container is indeed disposed of afterwards. Okay. The package must be sealed with strong medium, such as a strong tape. Items of clothing need to be kept and not folded. I must keep evidence that was found in a container as it is and mark it. I must include a letter of transmission to state what type of evidence must be done. For example, wound analysis, DNA or fingerprints, even ballistics. Again, I must account for and log all this evidence in the chain of custody form, where it was found, how, when, who transported it, and where the evidence locker is located. The woman must be removed by a certified professional and sealed, taken into custody by the coroner and sent to the forensic medical examiner for forensic autopsy. This must all be logged in the field notes and initial crime report before compiled in the closing report. The crime scene will be surveyed if necessary, but the longer the time it takes to do so, the more the chance the crime scene is contaminated. When mailed, I must always send this evidence in registered mail enclosed in a secure receipt. This careful collection of evidence is all necessary for a crime lab criminalistics to be capable of analysing all elements of the crime. Evidence chain. Okay. All evidence must be described and transported. If the evidence is taken out of a locker, it must be recorded. A knife, machete, and coat hanger, any physical, biological, or trace evidence must be accounted for, bagged, and sealed. Her bloody clothing should be examined, as we've already seen. If she had a cell phone or computer nearby, this should be described, logged, and transported. Did she communicate with anyone? Did this communication indicate a conflict? Did her husband or boyfriend contact her? Did anyone else contact her? Did you see that Bryan, when he turned his phone back on after the murders, did you see that he used a VPN? He used a VPN and a throwaway email address. Why did he think that would help? Did he think that would conceal his location? Absolute clown. Oh dear. Probably didn't do that module. Probably didn't get there. All right. This may help investigators look into the right direction if things turn out to not be obvious again. We cannot assume it was. But you guys, you pro-burgers, you think, oh, well, he turns his phone back on and switches a VPN on just out of complete normalcy while he's out stargazing. Okay. All right, cool. All right. We cannot assume it was the husband or boyfriend. No, it might be some crazed idiot living 10 minutes down the road who's been stalking you for months. It could be them. Just because there may be a history of domestic violence or a PFA, despite this being very common. Also, she may have children's furniture for her nieces or nephews, so we can't even assume she had kids. Good for you. When moved, all items will have an inventory receipt which document the movement for the chain of custody form. All of this is for accountability and integrity. Failing to do so leads to injustice. Is that what you feel you're having, Bryan? Oh. Don't commit murder. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Don't want to face the firing squad. Stay at home. Or go stargazing on a clear night. Maybe do that next time. Not that you're going to have a next time, Bryan. There can be a very clear link between victim and offender. Not in your case. Not a clear link. No, not in your case. But if this is not accounted for by a chain of custody, then it will be inadmissible. Okay. Outreach to other agencies. A lot of these inquiries would occur concurrently with the crime scene investigation. Does she have kids? The County Records Office should give us this information. If so, the welfare of the children should be ensured. Are we aware that there are dishevelled items of children's furniture around where are the kids? Where are they? Yeah, where are they? Calls made to family members of the deceased would help narrow down locations. Calls to the clerk of court office to see if there is a PFA out on the husband or boyfriend should be made. Just assuming she's got one. I don't know. The husband or boyfriend of the deceased woman should be contacted to establish an alibi. He needs to be immediately located and questioned. Yeah, that's what you thought would happen, and you would be gone, especially when you went to Pennsylvania, clearing away all your trash with your little gloves on and your baggies. It's like you were home and dry, literally. Like you were home and dry. The kids should be located as soon as possible. Amber Alert should be set if they are not accounted for. Right. Does their father even have rights to see them? Neighbours should be questioned to see if the father was around or suspicious person was present. Well, yeah, surveillance video. Surveillance, my dear Bryan. Surveillance. Cameras. Forgot all about that, didn't you? Oh, no. Anyone who normally passes by the scene again and again and again, going round in ever decreasing circles, as you were doing, let's have a look to see if there's any suspicious activity on neighbourhood cameras and see a white Elantra go doing circles, ever decreasing, for like nearly an hour before. What were you doing? Plucking up courage or what? Waiting for DoorDash to go? Waiting for all the lights to be turned off? I don't know what you were doing. All right. Anyone who normally passes the scene, such as a mailman, should be questioned and an alibi established. Where were the neighbours when this happened? Their alibis should be evident and supported. Did they notice anything unusual? Maybe the father was seen with the kids leaving the scene. This can be important evidence if the father is not responding and the kids are not located. The Amber Alert can be set based on the vehicle, plate numbers, and description of the father, if applicable. Eyewitnesses and surveillance footage in the trailer park, surrounding area, drugstore, which oversees the trailer, or nearby gas station. Yeah, this is a bit that Bryan forgot about. Doing ever decreasing circles around the streets, caught on multiple cameras. How not to do a crime by Bryan C. Kohberger. That should have been a real essay. All right. So, surveillance footage is circumstantial evidence, but may lead investigators in the right direction and to the apprehension of the subject. Well, it did in this case. It did in this case. Never a truer sentence was ever spoken. If we can't gather conclusive information by the end of the investigation, the FBI's Violent Crime Apprehension Program, VICAP, can help. VICAP may be utilised if this case happens to be unrelated to a domestic dispute, as the one that you did. This may be the work of a serial killer. Well, that's what you were trying to be, isn't it, Bryan? Budding Bundy. You were a budding Bundy. With your little thumbs up like Ted Bundy gave. Right? Little thumbs up like doing a little Ted Bundy smile. Yeah, that's what you wanted to be. You wanted to be Ted Bundy. You wanted to be your favourite serial killer. I don't actually know if Ted Bundy was Bryan Kohberger's favourite serial killer. I imagine that Bryan was so narcissistic that he wanted to be someone clever like Israel Keys. Mind you, Israel Keys also looked up to Ted Bundy. So, I don't know. But I absolutely believe if Bryan wasn't caught, he would become a serial killer. And if he's ever let out, if you pro-burgers get your way and he's acquitted, then he'll do it again. I promise you, we'll be here again with more murders. And he'll probably be better at it next time. So all of you people who are calling me biased and saying that I'm tainting the jury pool, well, if all you pro-burgers get your way, what you're doing is you're making the United States and potentially elsewhere, wherever Bryan decides to live, you're making that a very dangerous place. But hey, what do I know? It's all just my opinion, isn't it? Just as is you're entitled to yours. All right, VICAP, maybe you've read that. Still, we are only looking at the facts of the investigation rather than conjecture. All right, let's not do conjecture. And we can only say for sure once the suspect is apprehended and the evidence is strong enough to say what happened with scientific certainty. Well, we absolutely do have scientific certainty that the DNA on the knife sheath is Bryan Kohberger's. We do have absolute scientific certainty of that one fact. Of that one fact. You are biased, Michelle, as are you, Anna. You're a horse with blinders on, as are you, Anna. DM and BF were involved, as are you, Anna. I've already stated that I believe they've got their man. What are you going to do about it? You want to show me some exculpatory evidence? I'll listen. I just don't happen to have seen any as of yet. He spared the dog's life because he was a vegetarian. Well, he wasn't a vegetarian. What are you talking about? He spared the dog's life because he had nothing against the dog. He's an incel woman hater, not a dog hater. So, don't know what you're talking about. Why would he have anything against the dog? Maybe if the dog attacked him, maybe he would have stabbed the dog. Compilation of evidence and preliminary report, progress report, closing report, and prosecution report. My notes enabled that I wrote a thorough and accurate preliminary case report. All right, this is just a summary. That's a summary. All right, interesting. Wow. I'd like to know what mark he got for it. I'll say again, if anybody's ever been to DeSales University and taken the module CJ361, I'd be interested in knowing your experience, what other things that you were taught. Not that I think it's relevant, really. I'm just kind of interested as an ex-professor myself. I'd be interested in knowing this. However, the media went with this. I don't think this is evidence. I think it's interesting. Interesting to know what Bryan did before he became a quadruple murderer. Is some of this relevant? Yeah, maybe. But I made a huge blundering mistake, so I don't think his education prepared him for the realities of taking 4 people's lives. All right, we're going to move on now to Cy Ray, the saviour of the case, according to some of you pro-burgers. Michelle, have you read Cy Ray's affidavit? I have, and it's a terrible piece of writing. Terrible piece of writing. I'll show you for why. Okay, so this is it. This came out in the very latest rounds, so 26th. This was put on the docket, and it's this one here. Affidavit, objection to the state's motion in limine regarding AT&T timing advance records. It's that one. Okay. So this is it. We do have to backtrack a little to help us understand what's going on here. 4 people lost their lives and there's no justice without the truth. I agree. But we're moving towards that truth, aren't we? Because we're only in the pre-trial phase at the moment. So we'll get there. We'd have got there a lot sooner. If Kohberger's defence hadn't dragged their heels for literally years, we could have already had justice and the truth all out there. But no, the defence want to drag their heels. It's not no one but the defence wants to drag this out. Okay, comes now. Bryan C. Kohberger, by and through his attorney of record, and hereby files the accompanying affidavit of CHORLEY, superstar CHORLEY. Did he want to be caught? I don't think he wanted to be caught. I think he wanted to be the next Ted Bundy. I think he wanted to be notorious. He wanted to be a serial killer. That's just my opinion. There's no evidence to back that up. It's just the feeling I get. It's the vibe I get. All right. So, in support of the motion in limine number 2, regarding vague and undisclosed expert testimony filed with the court on February 24th, and their reply to the state's response to defendant's motion in limine, vague and undisclosed expert testimony filed with the court on March 24th. So we are going to go back to have a look at that. Not going to read it all, but I think we need this March 24 filing just to get the background, because this is just CHORLEY's affidavit. So I think we do need a little bit of background before we can read this. But the affidavit is filed pursuant to the court's March 18th, 2025 order denying witness testimony at the April 9th, 2025 hearing subject to the court hearing remote testimony. So there is a hearing on April the 9th. So this is CHORLEY's affidavit. Okay. So affidavit is CHORLEY, but we do have to just nip over to, where's it gone? What the hell? What the hell? Where's it gone? Hold on. I have to re-get it. March 24th. This one, I think. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, this one. All right, 16 pages. We don't need to read it all. But it's just to give us a feel for what CHORLEY is actually giving his affidavit about. Wasn't CHORLEY a character in the show NCIS? I don't know. I never watched it. DNA is not the be-all and end-all. No, DNA isn't. But when you've got DNA at the crime scene, which absolutely matches the offender, and it's on the sheath that contained the murder weapon, I think that's pretty weighted. So this is the defence's reply to the state's response to motion in limine number 2 regarding vague and undisclosed expert testimony filed with the court on March the 17th. Okay. So we don't have to read all of this, but it's basically saying that Bryan Kohberger isn't getting all of the discovery that he should be having. So Mr. Kohberger is protected by the US Constitution and Constitution of Idaho. Of course he is, absolutely. Totally agree. He has the right to a fair trial, of course he does. And to effective assistance of counsel, of course he does. To confront evidence against him, of course he does. And I'm glad that he's getting that. He has the right to not be convicted unless the state proves its case beyond a reasonable doubt. All right, we know this. Move on. I agree. Okay. So what they're accusing the state of doing is providing vague and loose topic area responses for the experts that they've worked closely with. These same experts have been working with the state since the beginning of the case. The state's disclosures were, for the most part, abysmal. Still, as it relates to 67 electronic devices and third-party warrant returns, the state has not disclosed any expert opinions or disclosures of what it intends to rely on. It doesn't have to at this moment in time, do they? They don't have to give a blow-by-blow account of everything that they're going to rely on at this stage. The trial isn't till August. But anyway, the state's disclosure can only be described as sandbagging. Interesting. In many cases, it appears that the state's initial disclosures resembled a laundry list of topics. And then once Mr. Kohberger complied with the court's order, the state took advantage of learning a great deal about Mr. Kohberger's experts and evidence and tailored new disclosures to address Mr. Kohberger's experts. Okay, they are not rebuttal disclosures. They are the state's case in chief. Numerous examples are laid out in Exhibit 1. I'm going to have a look at Exhibit 1. All right. One example is the state's Amazon expert Cox. A second and more extreme example is FBI Special Agent Balance. All right. So the big issue is with Special Agent Balance. All right. And I have to say the defense has some good points here. Listen, just because I think that Kohberger is guilty doesn't mean to say that I think the state are doing an absolutely sterling job in everything. I think they have dragged their feet in some ways. I think they have. At the same time, I think the state are turning over stuff as they get it. So it could be that there's certain experts who are dragging their feet, like Balance is dragging his feet. So, you know, this stuff, it'll work itself all out in the wash. You know, the trial isn't until August. We're only in March. But I do agree with the defence that they should be getting everything in a timely manner. Many of these expert disclosures are based on evidence and data that are still not being disclosed to Mr. Kohberger, and that's wrong. If they've got it, if it's in the state's possession, they should be turning it over. I absolutely agree with defence on that. I absolutely agree. This is particularly true of Special Agent Balance, whose ever-changing reports and opinions are based on material that has not been provided to Mr. Kohberger, and that is wrong. That's wrong. If the state are in possession of it, they should be turning it over. If Balance is holding on to stuff that it should be turning over, then the state needs to do something about it. But because Balance is with the FBI, they've got a problem. They've got a problem with these FBI dudes because they turn stuff over as and when they see fit, if at all. So maybe the state are frustrated with Balance just like the defence are. I don't know. I'm not there, am I? I'm just saying that the defence do have a good point here. They do. To assist the court, Mr. Kohberger appends Exhibit 1. All right, we're going to go to Exhibit 1. We're going to go and look at Balance. All right, because he's the problem. All right, Balance. S.A. Balance is an FBI agent specialising in cell site location, information, and a member of the Cellular Analysis and Survey Team, CAST. So he's the CAST guy. All right. So this is relating to the cell sites, the cell tower data. Here's my issue. And here's my problem with this, with people thinking that Cy-Ray, the defence's expert, so the defence's equivalent of Balance, is going to be the savior of the case. He absolutely isn't. Because Bryan turned his phone off. So when the crimes actually occurred, there's no cell data that is relevant. So unless they can prove, unless Cy-Ray can prove that Bryan's phone was on at the time of the murders and was somewhere else, that's exculpatory. But unless he can prove that, then all of this is just pissing in the wind. And I'm sorry, Cy-Ray's affidavit is a terrible piece of writing. Just saying. But we'll get there shortly. All right, so he worked alongside Moscow PD. They were actually all in the same building when all this was going on. He assisted in search warrants, as we know. Was communicating with the state detectives at least as early as November 15th. Yeah, he was there from the jump. All right, so expert disclosure, 12/18/24. The initial disclosure stated he would testify about how cell towers work and interact with cell phones. His testimony would include what records related to personal cell phones are available and how they are used. Okay. The roommates are not innocent victims. Prove it. Prove it, Anna. OJ was innocent. Well, yeah, according to law, OJ was found not guilty. So, yeah. Well, he's not guilty. You can't say he's innocent. You can say he was found not guilty. That's what you can say. All right. What about Casey Anthony? How do you feel about Casey Anthony, Anna? Was she innocent? Was she factually innocent? Like the jury found her not guilty, so legally she's not guilty, but was she factually innocent? I'm interested in knowing your views on Casey Anthony. Right? Do you just think everybody's innocent? Do you think everybody that the state apprehends and takes to trial is innocent? If OJ was actually innocent, then I'm the Empress of Japan. Oh, leave Anna. She's a legend. She's a legend in her own lunchbox. She is a troll, but she's a fun troll. She's a fun troll. Just ignore her. You can block her. If you don't want to see her comments, just block her. I'm not going to time her out. She's not being offensive. She's trying to derail the chat, but if you don't want to see her comments, then just block her your end. If you hover over one of her comments, and you'll get some 3 dots, and you can just hide her so you don't see her comments. And it doesn't mean to say that everyone else will be able to see her comments, but you won't. So if you're sick of her and you think that she's derailing, which I think she's derailing, but she's not being offensive, so I'm not going to time her out for it. All right, so he said he was going to testify about what records related to personal cell phones are available and how they are used. Okay. So that's what he said that he will disclose. All right. So it's noteworthy that the state has never disclosed SA Balance's methodology used to create his report. He has never disclosed how his maps were created. SA Balance has omitted over 90% of the AT&T data during the relevant times he chose to map. There is no disclosure as to why this data was omitted. Okay, I'll bite. Now, if you're taking cell tower data from an area where there are a huge amount of cell phones, then do the defense really want every single piece of data that could have been collected from that cell tower? If so, why? Surely they only need the cell tower data that's relevant to the murder itself. So the period up to and the period immediately after. Surely that's all they need. So I'd be interested to know what this 90% that is missing, what they feel that is. Like, surely they don't want every single interaction that a bunch of cell towers used. Like, they'd be complaining that they got too much data then. So, yeah, Richard Allen is innocent, but he was found guilty. Yeah. The justice system isn't always right. It absolutely doesn't, no. Especially when the prosecution and the judge work together to disallow key evidence. And the state's theory doesn't work and the jury can't see it. That's when the justice system doesn't work. It doesn't look good for Bryan because it's an entirely different case where there is actual evidence against Bryan. But I would like to see any and all exculpatory evidence, if there is actually any. At this moment in time, I haven't seen it. I can only go off what I've got available at the moment in the court records. That's all I can go from. at the moment. So that's all I can go from. Lisa, member for 28 months on the replay crew. Well, we're still live, but I assume that you've just come in and you're going to rewind, which is great. But thank you for being a member for so long. Okay, SA Balance will provide his opinion as to the general location in which the tower target cellular telephones were located at various times before and after the homicides of 1122 King Road and the cellular phone direction of travel. All right, well, that's okay. Absolutely, we need that. So, yeah. So the general locations in which the target cellular telephones, well, there was only one, like Bryan's. Bryan only had one phone, as we understand it. So when it was located at various times before and after the homicides. Okay. So have they not given that? Have they not given that? It's my understanding that they have given that. But if they haven't, then they need to. They absolutely need to. That testimony will rely on information furnished by cellular phone providers concerning which cell towers the cellular telephones connected with during those times. SA Balance may also testify regarding which cellular tower sectors were utilised for the relevant data and explain that the direction of the cellular tower sector utilised can indicate the general location of the cell phone relative to the tower utilised. Well, okay. The state has never produced an actual opinion by SA Balance about the general location of Mr. Kohberger's cellular phone at various times before and after the homicides at 1122 King Road. Well, they need to. They absolutely need to. So I agree with them. They need to. If the defence hasn't got that, they need it. I agree. So 217.25, rebuttal disclosure. The state responds to defence disclosures, but in doing so, it continues to refuse to provide expert analysis and opinion. The FBI Cellular Analysis CAS team conducts drive testing using a Gladiator Autonomous Receiver, a GAR, by Gladiator Forensics. The GAR collects the data, which is then analysed by Gladiator Forensics software. The software creates the coverage maps seen on several pages of the report. The coverage maps are created using the actual measurements taken by the GAR and interpolation using the natural neighbour algorithm. Okay. So they've explained what software was used to do this analysis of Bryan Kohberger's cell phone and its movements. But the defence goes on to say, did Anna block me? I can't see her anymore. Maybe she's left. Maybe she's left. Hold on. No, she's still in the chat. She's still there. She's still there. She's just not commenting. But she's still watching. The disclosure does not state who produced the maps or how they were analysed. Well, we know that it was the CAS team. So I think they're being a little bit pedantic here. I think they're being somewhat pedantic. So it was the CAS team that produced the maps, and they used the GAR software in order to analyse it. So that answers that question. Who produced the maps cast, how they were analysed using the software, the GAR software from Gladiator Forensics. So I don't understand. So the GAR collects the data, which is then analysed. Oh, so it's analysed by Gladiator Forensics software. So there's the answer. So give the defence the raw data and they can analyse it using their own software. How about that? How about that? Like, do they really need to know any more than it was developed and analysed by Gladiator Forensic software? And, you know, it was like collected by the CAS team and and it was done by Gladiator Forensic Software. Because if the defence want to do their own analysis of it, they should be allowed to. So just give them the raw data and let them do their analysis. There's your answer. They don't need the state's analysis. They need to do their own analysis, surely. They need to do their own independent analysis, I would think. No, I've not booted her. I've not booted her at all. She's still in the chat. I'm logged in as Michelle Walks over on this computer that I'm typing in right now. And I can still see her logged in as my other profile. She's still in the chat. She's just not commenting. And that's her choice. All right. The disclosure lacks an opinion about the mapping program or its production. They don't need to have an opinion. They just need to do the analysis. Why do they need to have an opinion that they're going to give to the defence at this stage? They need to give the data to the defence, and then the defence can do whatever they want with it and have whatever expert they want analyse it. I don't understand why there's a big hoo-ha about this, honestly. The state has not disclosed records that verify the mapping programme, nor has it stated Balance is an expert in the mapping. We know he's an expert because look, this is what drives me insane about the defence in this case, that they come up with a really good point that we need to have, like disclosures, we need to have all the data, we need to have everything to defend our client. I completely agree. But when it comes down to it, they start being really pedantic because actually they've got the stuff, but they're then nitpicking. So they've been told who produced the maps. Cast. We know that Balance works for Cast. He's a Cast person. So the FBI think he's an expert because he's working for Cast, with Cast, as Cast. Right? And we know how they were analysed. So what more can we say? And they're just now nitpicking. The state has not disclosed the records that verify the mapping programme. But they can get Gladiator Forensics. That's the programme. Nor is it stated Balance is an expert in mapping. That's what drives me insane about them. Balance went to great lengths to obtain raw test data in this case. Despite those efforts, he has only produced the mapping of that data for less than 5% of the relevant cell size in his work product. There have been no disclosures as to why he has omitted 95% of relevant coverage maps. Okay, well, answer them. Why has he done the maps he's done? Maybe he's only part way through the analysis. Maybe he's not done it all yet, or at least he's not disclosed it all to the state yet. But why don't you give them, like I'm talking to the state of Idaho now, why don't you give them, the defence, the raw data, and then they can do the analysis themselves as they see fit. And then at trial, we can have the battle of the experts. That seems to answer the problem to me. Just give them the raw data and let them do it themselves. Then they'll bleat and complain about that. But why? Why? They've got their expert, their saviour, Ray. Give him the raw data, let him do the analysis. There, I've solved it for him. The disclosure goes on. FBI Cast examines each transaction in the raw records, blah, blah, blah. The state does not disclose SA Balance's review of reliability. The state is creating wriggle room for Balance to testify to something undisclosed at this time. Well, we're in March and the trial is in August. So they need to be disclosing stuff. I agree. But we've got months yet. And is Balance going to testify to something undisclosed at the trial? Well, if he is, then that's completely wrong, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. American Woman, thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. The particular area impacts 7 minutes of time and exculpatory information. Okay. All right. I'm listening. We've got exculpatory information. All right. This is the 7 minutes between 2:47 and 2:54. I knew which 7 minutes they were gonna talk about. I'm being a little bit facetious by like having these like pregnant pauses, like going, listen. 2:47 to 2:54. I don't give a shit. I don't give a rat's ass where Bryan Kohberger was between 2:47 and 2:54. Why? Because we know the murders happened between 4:07 and 4:20. I don't care what route he took, what he did with his phone, or anything. That's an hour and a half before the murders actually happened. That's not exculpatory. I'm sorry. It's not exculpatory. That's an hour and a half before the murders. What would be exculpatory is evidence that Bryan was somewhere else at the time of the murders. That Bryan could get his phone like between 4:07 and 4:20 somewhere else entirely. That would be exculpatory. This is not exculpatory information. I'm sorry, you pro-burgers, if this is what you're relying on. This is not exculpatory information. This is an hour and a half before the murders. I don't give a rat's ass what Bryan was doing between 2:47 and 2:54. All I care about is where Bryan was between 4:07 and 4:20, because that's when the murders happened. Thank you, Mary, for the $6.99 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Ouch. Yeah, it's shit. It's just rubbish. Nonsense. The state later had to concede, based on its own discovery disclosures, that the phone went off the network at 2:54. Between the time of 2:47 and 2:54, while the phone was on and receiving service, it was utilising cell towers. The phone was not stationary and utilising only one tower. The phone was moving during the 7 minutes. During the 7 minutes, the tower's handoff service as the phone is moving. So as it moves from one area to another, it hands off from one tower to another. These handoffs, once analysed, locate the direction of movement and the location of the phone when it stops reporting at 2:54. The state asserts SA Balance mapped this data but has not produced it. Okay, so where Bryan was at 2:54, so originally in the PCA they said that he turned his phone off. His phone went off at 2:47, so that was as he was like leaving Pullman. But now the state have admitted that actually his phone went off 7 minutes later, and it's due to tower handoffs that they didn't initially realise. So the location of the phone when it stopped reporting at 2:54. That's what the defence wants. All right, give them that. I don't give a rat's ass where he was at 2:54, because he had an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. And remember that Moscow is only a 10-minute drive away. Right, we're going to do it. Let's map it out. All right, so I can't remember his apartment name. Does anybody remember his apartment name? I can't remember his apartment name offhand. However, I'm just going to do Washington State University. All right. So just done it to Washington State University. So it's going to be close. It's not going to be quite. So there's Pullman. All right. So, but if anybody can remember his apartment complex name, then I can change it. So 14 minutes. So the quickest route is 14 minutes. So what Bryan was doing at 2:54 while he's still in Pullman is completely irrelevant. I don't care what direction he was in. I don't care what street he was on when his phone was turned off. Step house apartments. That doesn't ring a bell, honestly. Steptoe apartments. I think it's Steptoe apartments. So you were nearly right. I think it's Steptoe. Steptoe apartments. There we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. 90 minutes. All right, 90 minutes. 90 minutes. So Bryan turned his phone off. And remember, this is the middle of the night, so he could get there quicker than 19 minutes. If he put his foot down, it's a straight road almost. He could get there in 19 minutes, less than 19 minutes. But if he turned his phone off at 2:54, he could be in Moscow by 3:15, easy. Easy. So where he was at 2:54 doesn't matter. It could be anywhere in Pullman and still get there easily with enough time to start all that roundabout stuff that he was doing, going round and round and round the neighborhoods and then ever decreasing circles. So it's bullshit. It is not exculpatory. You people who believe this pro-burger absolute horseshit, you're talking crap. That's not exculpatory. It's only exculpatory if his phone, and you maybe assume his person, is somewhere else at the time of the murders, or his phone is somewhere else and it's not able to get there by the time of the murders. So it's nonsense, absolute, complete nonsense. That's not exculpatory information. I'm sorry. You need to go back to school and learn what exculpatory actually means. But I do agree with the defence that the state should be disclosing these things. I do agree. I agree with you that the state should be disclosing these things. Not that it gives a rat's ass where he was, because he's still in Pullman. So, all right. So there's a lot more to this. Okay. And then it goes to 247, they're still on about. So then we've got the state not disclosing some more analysis. So between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. So this is between July the 9th, 2022 and November 7th, 2022. So these are the times when they say Bryan Kohberger was potentially in Moscow. Okay, we can argue that stuff. But even that stuff is not exculpatory. None of that is exculpatory. None of it. Sorry, none of it. All right. So that gives us the background. So this is CHORLEY. So this is the savior. This is the savior of the Kohberger case. All right. All right. Okay, why does it say Arizona? I assume you must live in Arizona. I don't know. I'm an adult over the age of 18. Good to know. To avoid repetition, please refer to my training and experience in the accompanying affidavit. Okay, cool. Affidavit of CHORLEY. All right. In preparing this affidavit, I have revised the motion in limine, number 2, vague and undisclosed expert testimony filed by defendant 22425. I have reviewed all of the state's responses in reference to this motion, as well as Essay Balance's draft report and final report. So, okay, you've got a bunch of stuff. Great. I'm addressing the matter of FBI Special Agent Nicholas Balance, his anticipated testimony in this affidavit, and what has not been disclosed. I have reviewed the initial reports, final reports, first discourse, first discourse, second disclosures, and now the third disclosure. Despite this progression of disclosure, Essay Balance's opinions on the relevant issues at hand still have not been disclosed. Why do you need Essay Balance's opinions? You're an expert. You're going to form your own opinion. Isn't that what an expert is? Is someone who forms their opinion and gives their opinion to the person who's like paying them or working, that they're working for, I don't understand why they need SA Balance's opinion at this stage. Form your own opinion first. Give him the raw data. Let him do the tests himself. I can solve it. I can solve it. Just give him the data. And then he can do the tests. I've reviewed disclosures in reference to SA Balance's interpretations and opinions. So you have got his opinions. What the fuck? So you've got his opinion. Despite this progression, SA Balance's opinions on the relevant issues at hand still have not been disclosed. Next paragraph. This is why this is just a terrible piece of writing. You guys who think this guy is going to save Bryan Kohberger, you're as deluded as, I don't know, as Ann Taylor is in thinking that she's going to get him off the death penalty by saying, oh, he's got problems with coordination and he's autistic. And he's no more blaming autistic than I am. All right, I've reviewed disclosures in reference to SA Balance's interpretation and opinions. The very next, not even the next paragraph, the next sentence. So you do have his opinion. All right, cool. Relating to AT&T call detail records. They are vague and at times contradictory. All right, that's something that you can hash out. That's absolutely something you can hash out. If SA Balance is contradicting himself in his reports, then you're gonna really hammer him at cross-examination, aren't you, Anne? Like, Anne would be perfectly within her rights to hammer him under cross-examination. Let the jury hear about these contradictions. You did not necessary for Cy Ray, though. Cy Ray is the expert who should be doing his own analysis of these records, not caring whether SA Balance is going to be a good witness or not. Dear God. At this time, I am unable to identify his methodologies and or resulting opinions on most of his work. I have reviewed disclosure in reference to SA Balance's interpretation and opinions. I can't. This is terrible. Terrible piece of writing. Terrible. Who is this guy? Apparently, he's got a decent reputation. I don't know whether it's true or not. Autism was never brought up before. I think Bryan probably is mildly autistic. But it's level 1. It's mild. It's mild. And it doesn't play into the possibility of him not getting the death penalty, because that's ridiculous, because he's not insane, he's competent, he understands right from wrong, it's not a cruel and unusual punishment. Anyhow, and under the law of Idaho, being autistic does not preclude you from the death penalty. Also, the argument that Ann Taylor has made that the jury need to be informed that Bryan's autistic, and that's why he has this creepy stare, and that's why they might get creeper vibes from him, is ridiculous. Absolute, complete, and total horseshit. Absolute nonsense. She has shot herself in the foot, as I've said in a couple of live streams now. She shot herself in the foot, left, right, and centre. I don't know how she's walking. She's going to have to appear in court and the next hearing in a wheelchair while her feet heal from her shooting herself in the feet. She shot herself in both feet multiple times. I hope she wears comfortable shoes for the foreseeable future. All right. Good God. The disclosures in reference to the facts and data relied on by SA Balance to form his opinions regarding AT&T cell detail records are conflicting and void of substance. Like your affidavit is void of substance. Because at the moment, you've not actually said anything that isn't contradictory, because you've said, oh, I don't have SA Balance's opinions. And then you say, I do have SA Balance's interpretation of opinions. Then you go back to say that it doesn't have his opinion. Then you go back to say it's contradictory. Which is it? And again, that's not your problem, Cy Ray. You're not the attorney. Anne Taylor, if she's noticing contradictions in Essay Balance's reports, then she's going to have a beautiful time cross-examining him and making him look bad in front of the jury. Go for it. I urge you to go for it. If he's a bad witness, let the jury know he's a bad witness, but do that at trial. And this expert here, who's an expert on cell data, do your analysis. You don't care what Essay Balance thinks. Do your own analysis. Dear God. His work does not contain his methodology other than a paragraph. Okay. Maybe he only needs a paragraph to explain it. I don't know. It does not mention AT&T handoff data, drive test mapping, or any other critical methodology required in his analysis. Well, if that's the case, you know that stuff should be in there. Again, this is a point for cross-examination, but you know that stuff should be there. And I agree that they should be turning over everything they've got, if they haven't done already. And that includes the raw data. Turn it over. Let CHORLEY analyse it. The report does not provide explanation why Essay Balance may or may not rely on AT&T data, preventing me from any real analysis of his opinion. Now said he's got an opinion. Well, does it has he given his opinion or not? At this point, I do not care. You are absolutely. It's a terrible piece of writing. All these people who came into my comment section, like, oh, did you see CHORLEY's affidavit? Yeah, I did. And it's terrible. Even if they've got a point, that the state hasn't turned over all the stuff that they need to turn over. And if that's true, then state, turn it over. I absolutely agree. The state should be turning over everything they've got. However, the stuff that they think they need, that they think is exculpatory, isn't. Because they're talking about times that don't involve when the murders occurred. You can't be saying, oh, well, Essay Balance got it wrong, that he turned his phone off at 2:54 and not at 2:47, therefore that's exculpatory. No, it isn't. As we've seen, he could be turn his phone off at 2:54, and regardless of where he was in Pullman, he could be in Moscow by 3:15. Easy to start his round and round. So they're thinking that Bryan Kohberger is somewhere else entirely and CHORLEY is going to prove it. But CHORLEY ain't going to prove it because Bryan Kohberger was exactly where we think he was. And that was doing his round and round until he parks up at 4:07 and he murders 4 people. And then he jumps in his car and drives away at speed at 4:20. So unless you can provide evidence to the contrary, that he was somewhere else, then I'm sorry, the bazinga moment that the defense thinks they have, saying, oh, we turned his phone off 7 minutes later, makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. Because he could absolutely be in in Moscow, Idaho, by 3:15, and the whole horrific, brutal affair all unfolds from there. Sorry, not exculpatory at all. I regularly work as a subject matter expert, and it's standard in my field for experts' opinions to be well documented and based on accepted best practice or methodology. The facts and data relied upon to reach an opinion are known and disclosed. Essay Balance's work is a departure from the field standard. He has not disclosed his methodology and analysis for his opinions. Well, we know what was used for the analysis, the GAR software. What more do you need? I don't understand. What do they need? I guess they need a breakdown of the methodology and all the analysis that was done. Okay, do that. Give them that. I don't see any reason why they can't have that. Give them that. Give it them. So I agree. Give it them. Okay. The facts and data relied upon to reach an opinion are known and disclosed, which you've said they are. that you've reviewed his opinions and his interpretations, and then you can confuse it and conflict with your own self by saying you don't have his opinions. So we either do or you don't. I don't understand. Essay Balance's work is a departure from the field standard. He has not disclosed his methodology analysis for his opinions. This is partially due to contradicting methodologies have been disclosed. So you've said he's not disclosed his methodology. Now you're saying he has. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. So he has not disclosed his methodology and analysis for his opinion. Now you're saying that he's got contradictory methodologies that have been disclosed. So you've gone from, like, one sentence, he's not disclosed his methodology. The next sentence you've said he's disclosed his methodology, but it's contradicting. Which is it? So he's disclosed the methodology, which has contradicted another methodology that he's previously said. Okay, again, if you've got contradictory information, that's great cross-examination fodder. But Cyril, does he have his methodology disclosed to you or not? Because you've now said he doesn't and then said he does. So which is it? Absolutely terrible, terrible piece of writing. You pro-burgers, surely you're not saying that this guy is going to save Bryan Kohberger from the firing squad or whatever we're going to kill him. Surely you're not relying on Cyril. You should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed at an affidavit like this. If I truly believe Bryan Kohberger was innocent, I would be embarrassed by what Anne Taylor and the defence team have done regarding autism and all that charade. And I'd be absolutely mortified reading an affidavit like this, which is absolutely terrible. Contradictions, sentence by sentence. Appalling. Appalling work. Appalling work. I bet you're glad I'm reading this, aren't you? All you pro-burgers, bet you're glad. Have you unsubscribed yet? Please do. I've already lost 10 subscribers today based on a 12-minute video, so I can afford to lose a few more. All right. So we've got contradicting methodologies that have been disclosed. So we've either got a methodology or we don't. This is partially due to vague work product, absent of any real substance as to facts and data, which is exactly what this affidavit read like. It's partially due to changes that evolve through iterations of work product without explanation and documented by facts and data as a basis. Okay, do your own analysis. Please do your own analysis. I did note that Essay Balance has a dual role in this case. He has an expert witness for the state, and using these same skills, he was involved in the actual investigation from the outset. He was co-located with the investigators throughout the investigation. His opinions and interpretations were relied on by investigators and prosecutors. These interpretations and opinions found their way into every probable cause statement supporting search warrants against the defendant. He was referenced in nearly every search warrant issued. His opinions and interpretations were an integral piece of building probable cause against the defendant. Okay. How is this relevant to you? Unfortunately, most of his opinions and interpretations provided to investigators and prosecutors are not supported by the evidence in this case. Say why. Why? Say why. Show you're working. Show your methodology for that opinion. Show your methodology and the analysis in which you have got this opinion from. So everything that Cyril has said about Agent Balance, I can say to him. How can you say that the opinions of Agent Balance are not supported by the evidence in this case if you have not shown the evidence to disprove it? Show us the evidence. Show us the evidence that is exculpatory. You haven't done, have you? No. Okay. Interesting. You haven't done. because the stuff about, well, he turned his phone off at 2:54 rather than 2:47, that's irrelevant. And then the stuff about what happened in the days before the murders, also irrelevant. All I'm interested in is the time of the murders, which is between 4:07 and 4:20 on the 13th of November 2022. If you absolutely cannot show that Bryan Kohberger's phone was elsewhere, which exculpates him, or could not have made it to Moscow in time to park up at 4:07, then I'm sorry, the information that you provided is not exculpatory. You don't understand the meaning of the word. All right, it's the very reason I was awaiting SA Balance's report detailing the facts, data, methodology, and analysis relied on to make such egregious errors. I was expecting to see work that explained the conclusions as well as properly addressing omitted analysis and errors in the work. The omitted work in this case is exculpatory to Mr. Kohberger. Okay. I'm going to love this guy's testimony at trial. I really am. The intentional omission of exculpatory evidence. All right. Okay. I'm going to get some opinion here from Cyril. SA Balance did not include analysis of AT&T handoff data provided by AT&T for the defendant's mobile device on November 13th, 2022, between the hours of 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. Irrelevant. Next. The handoff data is the defendant's AT&T records during this time is exculpatory to the defendant, as you've already said. So, repetitive, ignore number 11. 12. SA Balance did not include an analysis of AT&T data regarding 23 time periods in his report that he appears to be suggesting the defendant was at or very near the crime scene. Well, none of those relate to the actual time of the murders. Why? Because Bryan Kohberger turned his phone off at 2:54 a.m. while he was still in Pullman, thinking he was being a smart arse. None of these 23 time periods that he's going to talk about next are exculpatory because they are not during the time of the murders. This opinion appears to be based on cell tower connections, primarily handoff connections in the defendant's AT&T records, as you've already said. It is difficult to determine the process or methodology Agent Balance relied on to suggest this connection for several reasons, because the AT&T records do not support the statement. As you've already said, he's just going round in circles. He's going round in circles. None of it matters. This is terrible. You should be embarrassed, you pro-burgers. The defence should be embarrassed that this is the best that their expert can put forward. I hope he does better next time, because I want Bryan to have a very rigorous defence. I want him to be convicted based on the evidence. I want him to have solid defence so he can't wriggle out of facing the firing squad eventually. I want him to have a good defence. I want it to be done and dusted for the families. I don't want this to be a Richard Allen scenario where the evidence doesn't support the conviction and he's got very good grounds for appeal. That's not going to happen in Bryan's case. However, I don't want him to try to wriggle that way, because the evidence absolutely supports that Bryan did this. There's no exculpatory evidence. And I'm sorry that I've seen at this moment in time. And caveat everything by saying at this moment in time. But certainly the evidence provided by Cyril at this moment in time, I'm sorry, is not exculpatory because it doesn't cover the time of the murders. Unbelievable. Unbelievable how stupid some people are. I'm sorry. Some people are just stupid. Stupid. Thinking that this is exculpatory. Dear God. All right. There's no report or analysis detailing the defendant's movements between June 2022 and December of 2022. What's that? Why is that relevant? Why is that relevant? June 2022. Why is that relevant? In June 2022, it was still in Pennsylvania. Why is that relevant? And then December of 2022, why is that relevant? The only time that is relevant is between 4:07 and 4:20 on November 13th, 2022. And the time period that he would need to go from Pullman to Moscow and do all of those roundabouts, you know, round and round and round and round the neighborhood. That's the only time that's relevant. That's the only time that's relevant. And oh, surprise, surprise, that's the time when Bryan's phone was turned off. So none of these AT&T records are actually relevant to the murders. Ray is an expert with no real substance, no substance whatsoever. None. Which could be needed to surmise the defendant's phone was at or near the crime scene 23 times prior to the homicides. I thought it was 12. I thought his phone was in the vicinity 12 times prior to the homicides, which, okay, is interesting. I'd be interested to know whether the phone actually connected to the house's Wi-Fi, as Steve Gonsalves said in an interview way back. I've got a video on that. I mentioned it this morning. If he really was in the vicinity of the crime scene, I thought it was 12 times. Then how close was he to the crime scene? And that just indicates that he's watching the house. All right, that just indicates that he's watching the house. But it doesn't tell us anything about the murders. He could have been there 100 times, or he could have been there no times before. And none of that would have been exculpatory. None of it. Even if he'd never been near that house before, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that he didn't do the murders. So, anyhow, no mapping showing the network connections relied upon. There's no drive test coverage maps of other than one cell site. Okay, give them that. Give them it. For what good it's going to do, give them it. Because look, you might as well give him it. Give him it. Shut him up. A recent disclosure of what SA ballots may testify to reads: handoffs are mapped on a case-by-case basis, which is determined by the needs of the investigation. From my experience as a subject matter expert in this field, this claim is outside of any established best practice or reliable methodology of analysis. The standard is that all data must be analysed and considered regardless of how it impacts the investigation. So, Ray, do it. Do the analysis. That's what you're paid for. Not just write a silly report that is just contradictory and repetitive. I have reviewed the disclosures of what SA ballots will testify to. So you have got his disclosure as to what he'll testify to. Dear God. And do not find the disclosures provide further analysis to support his opinions. So you do have his opinions. You just don't like his opinions. Dear God. Oh, terrible. This is terrible. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed on behalf of the Kohbergers that they think this is great. I think this is great. Oh, dear God. Dear God. If only you had a brain. If only you had a brain. Who was the one on Wizard of Oz without the brain? Was that the Tin Man? So the lion didn't have a heart. I don't remember. Scarecrow, thank you. What did the Tin Man not have? Oh, the Tin Man didn't have a heart. What did the lion not have then? The lion didn't have courage. Oh, that makes more sense. I hated Wizard of Oz. It used to scare me. I didn't like it. We were forced to watch it at Christmas. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of being like whisked away in a tornado or whatever it was. And that witch was a bit weird. And then anyway, But this defense is a little bit like the Wizard of Oz, isn't it? It's like, oh, what's behind the curtain? Everyone's like anticipating that there's this big wizard behind the curtain. Actually, there's nothing behind the curtain because they're going to struggle to defend this guy. They're trying really hard, and I appreciate that. I do. I appreciate that. But, you know, when your client's guilty, it's difficult. When all the evidence stacked against him, it's difficult to defend your client in those circumstances. I appreciate that. I do. All right. So what's this? The first, I don't like these italics. It's hard to read because it's not a great print. It's not like dead strong, is it? The first cell site recorded by this session is the only cell site that is chosen based on measurements made by the cell phone, representing the best signal from these measurements and ranking of surrounding cell sites. The theory can be disproven with the AT&T records themselves. This response does not explain why you would use handoff data at certain times while ignoring it at other times. Okay. So are you saying that Bryan Kohberger's phone was actually on during the time of the murders and elsewhere? No, you're not saying that. Okay, it's relevant. The coverage maps are created using the actual measurements taken by the GAR and interpolation using the, can't even read it, natural neighbor algorithms. In other words, it's looking at known values at known locations to determine the expected value at a location where a measurement couldn't have been taken. The natural neighbor algorithm was first published by Robin Simpson, 1981, and is widely accepted in both academia and as an industry standard in determining the coverage of a particular cell site within a broader cellular network. This statement falls well short of any real disclosure of how the GAR product estimates cell site coverage areas. I have been in direct contact with Gladiator Forensics, and this statement contradicts what Gladiator Forensics communicated to me about their own products. Interesting. All right, this is interesting. Does it exculpate Bryan, though? No. Is Agent Balance being economical with the truth? Maybe. Maybe he is. But it still does not exculpate Bryan, unfortunately, for the Kohbergers. But it's going to be great testimony at the trial, isn't it? Like, Ann Taylor's going to have so much that she can cross-examine Balance on. Absolutely. Bring all this up at the trial, please do. The recent disclosure states, page 13 depicts cellular phone usage by the 8458 phone on November 13th, 2022. Okay, is this during the time of the murders? And Balance is expected to testify that when the 8458 phone interacted with the AT&T network at 247. Okay, so we're still at 247. All right, irrelevant. The phone was not at Bryan Kohberger's residence, marked BK on the map. Rather, it was southeast of the Bryan Kohberger residence, as depicted by the drive test data. Balance is also expected to testify that he analysed additional handoff data that occurred during this data session and that the 8458 phone stopped communicating with the network at 2:54 and 45 seconds. Irrelevant. So at 2:54, when Bryan's phone stopped communicating with the network, okay, so where's the step to apartments? Is this the step to apartments around here? Step to apartments, there we are. Step to apartments. So originally, they said that Bryan turned his phone off when he left his residence. They're now saying that Bryan turned his phone off when he was southeast of his apartment. Well, Moscow is to the east. of his apartment. Moscow is actually southeast of his apartment. So what it appears is that Bryan left his apartment with his phone on, realized 7 minutes into his journey that he had his phone on, and he turned his phone off. So Bryan's actually on his way to Moscow when he turns his phone off. How is that exculpatory? That's inculpatory. That's inculpatory. So when his phone actually lost connection with the network and both sides admit that his phone was turned off at that time at 2:54, he's on his way to Moscow. He's southeast of his apartment. What is southeast of his apartment? Oh, it's Moscow. Oh, it's 1122 King Road, which is southeast of his apartment. I'm dead. I'm gone. I'm gone. How can they not see that that's inculpatory? If only you had a brain. Oh, Anne. Oh, no. Oh, Anne. Oh, you're so sad. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. No. Can they not read this and realise that it's a problem for them? Dear God. Dear God. Oh, no. This disclosure does not provide an analysis or opinion as to what St. Balance found when he analysed additional handoff data. Well, he found that it was southeast. It's southeast of his apartment. Oh, dear. Which is inculpatory because he's on his way to Moscow. He's not in the opposite direction. He's not flying off somewhere. He's not got on an aeroplane. He's on his way to flaming Moscow by 2:54. Leaves his apartment at 2:47 thereabouts. He's 7 minutes into his journey, probably, I don't know, hanging around the outskirts of Pullman somewhere. Realizes he's got his phone on, turns his phone off, and then he's off, and then he's captured on all them cameras when he's in Moscow. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, this is really sad. Oh, I'm so embarrassed for them. I'm embarrassed. Pro-burgers, please accept my heartfelt sympathies. I'm so embarrassed for you that you think this is exculpatory. This is yet another piece of inculpatory evidence. It's not a big piece. It's not a big piece, but saying that his phone was southeast of his apartment when he turned his phone off, I'm sure the jury will consider that potentially inculpatory because it shows he's actually on his way to Moscow. Oh, dear. SA Balance conducted a significant amount of drive test data, not provided that data to support his work. Supply it. Because it's hilarious. These are hilarious. These are hilarious. I'm dead. I'm absolutely dead. Drive test data is collected when an investigator takes radio frequency survey equipment out to the field and collects signal measurements of the cellular network. By driving specific grid patterns through an area, it's possible to capture enough data to reliably estimate a cell site's coverage area. Good for you. Go and do it. Go and do it. Go and do it. Go and drive. Go and do test driving. In this case, SA Balance and SA Kennedy spent several days conducting drive tests in and around Pullman and Moscow. In all, they collected well over 500,000 data points, enough data points to effectively map the coverage area of all relevant cell sites related to this case, that being roughly 24 cell sectors. Well, give Cyrey the 500,000 data points and let him do the analysis. That'll keep him busy, won't it? That'll keep him busy. SA Balance has only produced coverage mapping for 4 sectors. Well, maybe they don't need the rest. Maybe they don't need the rest because they know exactly where Bryan Kohberger was. Maybe they don't need the rest. But if you want the rest, give him the rest. Give Cyrey the 500,000 data points. And then I can't wait to read the defence motion bleating about how much work they've got to do and they need a continuance, because that's what will come up. I can guarantee it, because they're trying to wriggle their way. They're trying to keep Bryan alive for like a few months longer, which is insane. It's insane. If he truly was innocent, they'd want that. They'd want this trial done and dusted. She truly was innocent. All right. SA Balance has only produced 4. Good stuff. SA Balance has collected the required data and does have access to the required software to map all of the sectors he analysed in his drive test efforts. The conversion of raw data to coverage image is relatively non-existent when compared to the effort required to collect the raw data. Well, you've got the raw data. Give Cyril the raw data. Give him the raw data. Just give him the raw data and shut him up. Let him do the analysis. SA Balance, in accordance with FBI CAS policy, had his work product peer-reviewed by another FBI CAS agent, SA Kennedy. There are official reports stating SA Kennedy did peer review SA Balance's work product and signed off it being complete and accurate. I created the first subject matter expert certification course in the United States, this field for state and local law enforcement. I have taught this course over a decade, certifying over 100 subject matter experts in the field. Part of that course includes peer review process, standard, blah, blah, blah. I have personally completed well over 50 peer reviews myself. So he's an expert. He's an expert in his field. Give him the, 500,000 data points. Where was it? 500,000 data points. Give him that and let him analyze it, because he's like an expert, the first subject matter expert certification course. He's taught this course for over a decade. Part of the course includes peer review. Personally completed well over 50 peer reviews myself. The state has not disclosed required data. Do the analysis. He's expert enough to do the analysis. Do the analysis and show us all how it needs to be done. And show us all this truly exculpatory evidence that you think you've got. Do it. I hope you do. I hope you do. It's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Hilarious. No, I don't think he was expecting a mail. I don't think he expected Maddie and Kaylee to be in the same room. And I don't think he expected Xana to be awake and Ethan to be there. I think he already planned to kill one person. I think the rest got in his way, which is absolutely heartbreaking for those family. I mean, it's heartbreaking. The whole thing is just heartbreaking. But you guys who think that I'm taking the jury pool, well, yeah. What are you pro-burgers doing? Hilarious. It's in his affidavit, try reading all of it. I just have. Reigning suspects, where have you been? I've just read the entire Cyril affidavit, all of it. I've just read all of it. I've just read all of it. That's all of it. There. There. Affidavit of Cyril. I've read every single word. I've read every single word. Every word. Right to the end. So, reigning suspects. It's in his affidavit. Try reading all of it. Why don't you try listening to what I've just said? If you just come in, rewind. Dear God. If only I had a brain. Hey, reigning suspects. If only you had a brain. All right, I'm going. I'm gone. Thank you all. Maybe, hopefully, we'll not get any more. I mean, there's been so many. There's been so many filings in March. And look at all these. This is March. All these in March. We've had so many. And, you know, I've only scratched the surface. I've read them. But I've only scratched the surface of going through them, like, in detail. and I'm certainly not going to cover all of them. But if you do have any particular filings that you want me to take, take a look at and do a live stream on, just let me know. Let me know in the comments, because I'm signing off now, so don't put it in the chat because I won't read them. But put it in the comments after, if you're on the replay, put it in the comments if there's any of these filings that you want me to go back to and do a live stream on, or if it's just a small thing, I'll do just a recorded video. But let me know. Let me know. But, I cover a lot of cases, and this one I've covered from day one, and I'm going to carry on covering it. However many subscribers I lose, I say what I see. I don't say what's popular. I say what I see. And at this moment in time, I am not seeing any exculpatory evidence that's truly exculpatory. I'm really not. If I was, I'd tell you, and I'd change my opinion on a dime if that evidence came through. But at this moment, it's not there. I'm sorry. It's just not there. I'm sorry. All right. So thank you all for joining me. Thanks as always, mods. Right at the beginning of the stream, we had Purple Edge who gifted 5 memberships, and we had American Warrior who gifted 5, and we had Mary who gifted $6.99 Canadian, and then we got some members here. So we got Mason, who's been a member for 6 months, Lisa, who's been a member for 28 months, and Mary, who's been a member for 6 months. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's gone dark while I've been speaking. So time for a sign off and go. I'm going to go and see if there's a nice clear sky. And I'm now going to go and do some stargazing, maybe. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. I'm going to play us out. I'm going to play us out with my outro. Bye, guys.